Lydia Shadrach-Razzino, a partner at Baker McKenzie's corporate practice in Johannesburg. Delighted to have you here today, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Magdalena.
Now, you have the experience of working with two major South African law firms before joining Baker McKenzie at the beginning of this year. However, when you were growing up, at what point did you realize that you want to make a career in law?
So it was probably towards the end of high school and in my final year of high school. When I was looking at various career opportunities, I didn't grow up thinking that all I want to do is be a lawyer. But with that said, everything that I did through school and through my education sort of prepared me for it. I was always, I loved English, I loved the languages, and I loved to argue. So I was always part of
That's
the
a good trait to have as a lawyer.
Yes. And so always part of the debate team. And I was always the fourth person on the debate team. So the person that spoke the last and summed everything up and presented all of the arguments and tied it up all together. And it was only actually well into law school that I realized that all of that sort of really prepared me well for the industry that I was going into. And so it was very much last minute in my final year of matric when I decided, when I got accepted into law actually, and then I thought, that could be interesting. Let me see how that goes.
Lovely. And then talk us through your experience of becoming a lawyer.
Yeah, so I studied at the University of Natal, now known as the University of KwaZulu-Natal in KZ, in KwaZulu-Natal. And your typical legal courses, and the degree that I that I initially did was called the BProc degree. They no longer offer that degree. It used to just be the attorney's degree, and if you wanted to be an advocate, you then have to do the postgraduate LLB. So I did the BProc and I did the postgraduate LLB, and in fact was part of the last BProc class that KZ had offered. There were various topics or subjects that interested me while I was studying, but corporate law was just something that really attracted me.
And why?
I thought that business law and company law was just so interesting, and it was different. It was also, watching all of the legal shows when I was young. I think there was Ally McBeal, there was Boston Legal, there was LA Law. A lot of it focused on corporate law, and it really made it look quite glamorous, right? So with that background, and then going in and studying the subject matter, I thought, that is actually what I want to do. And then I was really good at it. And when you're really good at something, it makes you fall in love with it, right? And so I knew from like my first year, that's what I wanted to do. And I started also then tutoring the BCom law students on commercial law 1 and 2. And I also found that I really enjoyed telling other people that didn't have a background in law what this corporate commercial law was about. And interestingly enough, about 2 years ago, randomly at a restaurant, someone came up to me and said to me, "You were my commercial law 1 tutor in 1990 what?" I'm not going to specify the year because I'm going to be giving away too much. And I thought, wow, you actually remember that? So it must have made some impact in someone's life. And so it was very fulfilling. And so that's how I knew I wanted to be a corporate lawyer.
Well, so you've mentioned that obviously what attracted you is watching some of those legal TV shows. And was there anything there that didn't necessarily fulfill your imagination of what it's going to be like? Or, was it exactly as you've imagined it's going to be like? Becoming a lawyer, that is.
Yes, it's actually nothing like those TV shows. It's the parts that they don't show you in those TV shows is burning the midnight oil, putting in the hard yards, building those relationships, creating a strong team, bringing people along with you, making sure that team works like a well-oiled machine. being client-centric and learning how important those key relationships are. Those TV shows taught you none of that. And neither does university, really, to be honest. The legal degrees are very theoretical and very technical, and of course you need them as a background and as your foundation to what you're doing. But being a corporate lawyer is so much more than the TV shows and your legal degrees. And you actually learn all of that on the ground as you're working and as you're training. And I was very lucky in my career to have, and very blessed by, to have a couple of really good corporate law mentors or M&A mentors who are actually all men. Sadly, because women in this industry, and that's partly what we're going to be talking about today, I'm sure. We're only seeing the more senior corporate lawyers, senior female corporate lawyers coming through now. So, but 20 years ago, when I started in this game, it was I would say almost 100% male dominated in Africa. So my mentors were male, but they were all brilliant lawyers. And they really helped me understand how this industry works, what clients expect. The practical stuff that the theory at law school is not going to teach you.
Now, you're very, very successful in your career. You are a female lawyer that is very successful. Now, there must have been many obstacles that you had to overcome along the way. What were some of the biggest challenges that you had to face that you're willing to share or talk about?
Sure. So, I think being a female of color in this industry and in the South African context was probably the biggest obstacle I've had to face. That in itself, opening the door or walking into a room and people seeing me. I looked younger 20 years ago. I looked younger than I actually was. Still look a bit younger than I actually am. And people just make assumptions about you without knowing you, right? It's all of those. It's those conscious and unconscious biases. And so I was very much underestimated when I walked into a boardroom, and it was generally a boardroom that was full of men. But with that said, though, Magdalena, I must tell you, it was being underestimated that was one of the biggest drivers for my success. Because people didn't see it coming, right? And when I realized that I had that power, personally, it was very powerful for me to be able to tap into that and use that. So use it to my benefit, walk into a room and they think, this is going to be an easy deal. And then I let them think that it's going to be an easy deal. And then
surprise them.
Yes. And what was really wonderful was the clients. There were certain clients around me that supported me, that could see that and liked that element of surprise, and also that were sort of forward thinking enough and more robust to choose a very young female lawyer of color to work on some of the biggest transactions in this country. And it's those people that I actually really do have to thank for a lot of my success, because if it wasn't for people like that took a chance when everyone else would rather have not taken that chance, it made a big impression on me personally, and actually on the industry, because it actually helped change the industry.
Now, in 2022, you were awarded the 2021 Dealmaker of the Year, the first woman to ever receive that award. You were also shortlisted for this award a year earlier. What does this mean to you?
Yeah, so that was probably one of the biggest and most pivotal moments of my career, because it brought together everything that I had been working for. It was firstly personal recognition, which which was very, very important based on the short history that I've given you, coming through the ranks. I didn't start in a big law firm. I actually started in a very small law firm, worked my way up through the ranks into the big law firms. I worked exceptionally hard. I worked exceptionally long hours. I really wanted to excel and give my clients the best of me. And I really did put the best of me into everything. So that moment, if we talk about 2020, firstly, I was gobsmacked when I was shortlisted. And I was shortlisted again with two other men. And then I didn't win. And it really did feel like a bit of a punch in the gut. I thought the industry has, and these judges and this platform has this moment to really make a statement, right? And I felt that they had missed that moment at that time. But with that said, I thought, this is the first step, the first sort of knock on that door and like shake the door a little bit. And then I got over it quite quickly. And then the next year was then shortlisted again for the same award. And I thought, you know what, whatever happens will happen. But we walked into that room that night. The two deals that we were working on, one deal of the year, it was the private Ascendus Project Beast transaction, which won private equity deal of the year. It was the Vodafone Egypt deal that won deal of the year. And then I was announced as deal maker of the year. And in that moment, I just thought, I was very proud of myself, but I was more importantly, I was so proud of what that meant for the industry as a whole, what that meant for the women, other women in the industry, and especially women of color and women that look like me. When you sit back and you see someone that looks like you doing exceptional things, what it actually means is that you can do exceptional things. And so the inspiration for me coming out of that, to inspire, firstly it inspired me, and then to inspire other people in doing that was, I thought, just incredible. And the industry reacted so exceptionally well to it. I got a lot of support. I got a number of calls and emails, and some really nice things were said. And so one of the women that the head of the ECM team at ABSA, her name is Samira Hassan Ali. I will not forget her email. She sent me an email and said, "Congratulations." And she said, "I can hear the sound of the glass cracking or shattering." And I thought that was such a beautiful description. So yeah, what it meant was more important for the industry, but also very important to me.
Thank you for that. Now, I have a quote from a report that I would like to read out to you and get your thoughts on it. In 2020, the Law Society in England and Wales and Women in Law South Africa released findings from roundtables that were held in 2019. The quote, and here I read directly from the report, said, "Women have fought hard for the right to be educated and the right to work. However, at present, the right to work seems to be somewhat limited in its effect, as women find it difficult to progress beyond a certain level. We do see that to be true in the legal profession. Is enough being done to address that issue?"
So the short answer is that there's not necessarily enough being done, but there's certainly more being done now than there was a few years ago. And having been in this industry for a number of years, I've actually seen the evolution of this. When I first started, we were not even talking about why it was difficult for women to progress in this industry. And if you raised it, or if you mentioned it, you were seen as whining about something that's not a real issue, and just forget about it and let's get on with it. And what I've seen, my own personal view and perspective of what I've seen, is this evolution from not even recognizing there was an issue and not talking about it, to then recognizing that there was an issue, to then recognizing there was an issue and start talking about it. And then finally where we are now is we recognize there's an issue, we're talking about it, and we're also doing something about it. So to me, it's progress, but it's not enough. We need to do more, and we need to do more quickly, because yes, in law firms, and this is a global trend across law firms, um, women do get to a certain level and they're not progressing beyond that level because women do want to have families, as do men want to have families, but we know that women are the primary caregivers, right? And they just do more, and the men have different roles, but that in those different roles, and even those roles are changing, but that's a conversation for another day. But in the different roles in the legal profession, what that means is that women, especially before COVID and before we had more flexible working arrangements, was really difficult for them to do it all. I know a few women that have had kids, and a number of kids, that structure their work days in such a way that they'll from 2 a.m. in the morning to like 4 a.m. they're up working in order, yes, in order to do what their male counterparts are doing, and to keep them at the same level. And so the progress that I've seen, even though that it's not enough, I think flexible and hybrid working arrangements mean the world to mothers. And I've actually seen it in my own team. So I've had a senior associate who's just come back from maternity leave, and I've got a junior director in my team that is on maternity leave. And when the senior associate came back from maternity leave, she said, I want to ease into things. And we gave her the opportunity to ease into things. We did not bombard her with work from the first day and, overwhelm her days. And she wanted to take it at her own pace. She took it at her own pace. And then within a couple of weeks said, I'm ready. And now she's doing phenomenally. She's working on, I think, like 3 large transactions all at the same time. When she needs to go home, when she needs to be home, she just says, I'm leaving for the day. Is that okay? I'm going to go home, and I've got X, Y, and Z to do, but I'm going to log in at this time, and then I'll get the rest of the stuff done. And we're able to accommodate that because we understand, and also understand that in order for mothers to progress in this industry, we have to accommodate them, and we have to be flexible. And also to let people take it at their own pace and not make them feel like they're falling behind because they've chosen to take it at a different pace. And it's going to be different at different times, right? And what I've also seen with that senior associate and the junior director that I'm talking about is they know what they want, right? And they also, they're missing the transactional work when they're not in the transactional work. So they're excited to come back. They're excited to come back into it. And I need to harness that excitement and let them know that the space is safe and open for them to come back into it as they want to come back into it. So, and I think that we need to be more conscious about dealing with the issues that working mothers face, but it's not just working mothers, right? It's one portion of it. We do not pay enough attention to the unconscious biases that women deal with on a daily basis. We have made progress, and we've moved across from conscious biases, and we can see it, and we talk about it, so we know what it is more than we know what the unconscious stuff is. But that unconscious subtle nuances that are really sometimes difficult to explain are the things that trip women up the most. When you walk into a room or a boardroom or a meeting, or you meet some key people at a client, and there's just something that you feel it just doesn't feel right, and they give more attention to the male lawyers than they do to the female lawyers. If you actually delve into those things, you will understand that there are some unconscious biases at play there. But because nothing is overt and express, it's difficult to say, well, or point to something that someone's actually done. So you're just left in a bit of like no man's land, right? And so the more we start talking about these unconscious biases and those subtle nuances and the subtle prejudices, I think that's the next step in helping us move forward.
Then how do you deal in those situations, with those situations? How, when say you do walk into a boardroom and there is that prevalence, how do you deal with that?
So personally, I choose to look past it, if in that moment, and just give my best to whatever I'm there to do, with the hope that that best of me is going to be good enough. And in fact, the best of me has to be good enough. And whatever happens and whatever the reactions to that is more a reflection on the people that have those issues than it is about what I'm doing in the situation. So that's how I'm choosing to deal with it. But I do have more experience with this than junior female lawyers. So how I'm choosing to also help and give back is by having these sorts of conversations with those junior lawyers and teaching them how to handle those situations. And also, the less airtime you give to those sort of issues, and when it comes up, sometimes the better, because then you shut it down. You consciously and unconsciously let the counterparty that's displaying this sort of behavior understand that this is not going to impact me. I'm here to do a piece of work, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability.
Certainly. Now, with your personal life, have you ever had to draw any boundaries? Have you ever felt that your professional life and career is too much?
So there have been moments like that over the years where but it gets overwhelming. But I absolutely love what I do. And so I feel that when you do love what you do, and when passion and purpose collide, it's difficult for it to overwhelm you or feel like it's intruding on other areas of your life. I've also got an amazing support structure in my husband, who has supported my career choices 100% and never once complained, or even when I've had to move holidays and cancel dinners and work through weekends. So I'm super grateful for that. But like I said, because I love what I do and I'm passionate about it and I'm purposeful about it, and I do feel that one of my purposes in life is to give back in this industry and grow an amazing team around me and bring young people through, and especially young women and women of color. It gets me out of bed in the morning with the spring in my step to do what I need to do. And so I never really feel like it's intruding on my personal life in any way.
Now, sorry, go on.
No, so I was just going to say, I do make room for myself. So I do things to take care of myself. So I like spending time in the African bush. So every couple of months I'll go there for a few days and decompress. Make sure every couple of weeks that I have a massage and take a time out. And those things help me. And I also train. I do a lot of yoga and Pilates. And more recently, you'll find me quite often on a paddle court. And all of those things together with that passion and purpose have made for a very fulfilling and rewarding career and life.
Thank you for that. What advice would you give to women looking to make a career in law?
So, I've been asked this question a couple of times, and I've given it quite a bit of thought. Also, I think about it in the context of what advice would I have appreciated when I was a young woman starting out in this profession. So I have a number of things to say, so if you can bear with me. The first is, and actually this has happened in the more recent past, that I've actually learned that, and I've seen it with my own eyes actually, that being true to your values and doing the right things even when it's really difficult to do the right things is going to set you apart from the crowd. That's the first one. The next one is that we need to keep moving forward, even if sometimes that momentum seems a bit slow. The next thing that I would like to say, sorry, I did say that there were a couple of things, is that, you know, I think that women need to be brave, and we all have that in us. We think something, and then something stops us from saying what we're thinking, and then someone else says it, or you realize later that that thought is actually the right thought. Be brave, step up, say it, speak your mind, because actually your gut more often than not is right. The next thing that I would like to say is, and this is from personal experience, coming from a space where I was a very young female lawyer and no one knew my name, and coming up through the industry to having a decent reputation now in the industry. You know, young lawyers get intimidated by bigger personalities and lawyers with big reputations. But what I would like to say to younger women and younger professionals in general, actually, is that don't be intimidated by those big personalities and the big reputations, because those people are equally at times intimidated by others, and we're all human. And then my second to last point is that I firmly believe that each one of us has greatness within us. And it's up to us to dig deep inside. And sometimes it's easier and sometimes it's more difficult. And we need to dig deeply within ourselves and to find that greatness and to bring it out. And I encourage all young professionals in this industry, and especially women, to give that a shot. And I think you'll actually be surprised by the results. And lastly on this, I have learned over the years that there are two things that are the winners on any day, and this even beats super smarts and super intelligence, and that's resilience and grit. And resilience and grit is, you know, to give you a practical example, when you're doing something that's really difficult and you think, oh, I feel like giving up, or I can't take another step forward on this, or I don't trust myself, just give yourself a little bit of space, maybe take a break, but try it again and push yourself that little extra mile more. And that's a combination of resilience and grit. And my experience is that those are winners on any day.
Now, finally, my last question is, you know, who inspired you? Is there any specific person, woman, that have inspired you in the past, and why?
So I can't say that there's one specific person that has inspired me. I'm constantly inspired by a number of strong women around me. I think the first of those strong women would have been my mother, because my mother was the first woman that I knew that had a job, because I come from a community where the women were housewives and stayed at home and took care of the family. My mother chose to work, and she chose to have a family. So I had a nanny take care of me in my younger days. And I saw my mother wake up really early in the morning, take a bus to work, come back in the evening, cook a meal for her family, on weekends, making sure that she was preparing the family for everything. So she was my starting point as seeing a sort of strong female role model. I lost my mother at the age of 13, but I did have 13 very good years with her. And subsequently, I've surrounded myself in my professional circle as well as my personal circle with very, very strong women, and women in the legal industry, but associated industries around it as well. So I have a number of very good friends that are sort of CEOs and private equity transactors and principals that are doing wonderful, phenomenal things. And they all inspire me actually on a daily basis. And I try and find time to spend with them. So like a dinner or a lunch or breakfast, or even if we're doing some form of training session together, and we're always sharing and exchanging ideas. And even friends and women that I know in my network across industries that have been truly, truly inspirational. I can give you a couple of names. So, for example, Fulu Makwetla, who is a very close friend of mine, and she is co-founder and CEO of Third Way Investments, which is a fund of funds. Super inspirational woman. Then there's Zelda Denny, who is a private equity transactor at Oppenheimer Partners. Again, you know, just super bright, super smart, and I love spending time with her and sharing and exchanging ideas. Then there's CJ, Cheryl Jane Kachenga, who used to be the previous CFO and acting CEO at Ascendant. Again, another absolutely phenomenal woman. Then there's Andrea Molyneux, who's actually a winemaker, and she was winemaker of the year globally a couple of years ago. Good friend of mine, super strong woman, and what she's done together with her husband in creating this amazing global wine brand is just phenomenal, right? So it's all of these wonderful women that constantly, and there's so many more on that list that I could spend hours talking about. But just to give you an idea of the inspirational women in my life that inspire me daily.
Lovely. Well, thank you so very much for that, Lydia. That concludes all of my questions today. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it, and hopefully speak soon.